My name is Will Hughes, and I created ClearPath Divorce to help people that are entering the divorce process to learn from the first-hand experiences of people that have already been through it. You can learn from their mistakes and insights to reduce the pain, the time, and the cost of divorce. In this video, I'm going to review the 3 primary methods of divorce and the cost of each. This video series will teach you what you need to know from the first steps in the divorce process, how to find a great lawyer or mediator, and how to protect yourself. This will give you a sense of what your options are, and it's going to help you to choose between going to court in a contested divorce versus pursuing a mediation. Now, this is important to know because sooner or later you'll be talking to a lawyer and you want to have a very clear direction. While a good lawyer is going to guide you and discuss all your options, not all of them will. Unfortunately, divorce lawyers can earn far more money if you go down the path of a contested divorce, so they may steer you in this direction even if it's not what's in your best interest. Knowledge is power, so this video will be very helpful in explaining your options so you can make the best decisions for you. This is the first video in a series on how to get divorced, and I'm offering it to give you some clarity and direction. Now, if you like it, join the full course of ClearPath and I'll teach you the process for divorce, the first steps, how to make really smart decisions, how to protect yourself during divorce, which so many people make mistakes on that one, and then how can you reduce the time and cost of divorce. Now, before we get started, I want to be clear that I am not an attorney or a therapist. I'm just like you. I'm someone who's been through a divorce myself, and I thought others could learn from my experiences as well as others that have contributed to ClearPath. All information in ClearPath should not be construed or substituted for legal advice. Everyone that's going through a divorce needs to have their own lawyer to help them with their specific circumstances and, of course, their local laws. All right, so now with that out of the way, let's discuss the 3 primary ways that people divorce and the cost of each. So the first common method of divorce is called a contested divorce. This is the type of divorce we've all read about in books or seen in movies. The 2 parties are very much at odds and they can't agree on anything. But they do want to get a divorce, and of course they want to get as much of the marital assets as they possibly can. So both parties hire lawyers and they try to rip the other's lungs out as they go to divorce court, where a judge is going to make decisions regarding their settlement. Now, this is the very important distinction to understand. In a contested divorce, ultimately the decision about the details of your divorce are going to be left in the hands of a judge. Now, for these reasons, it's typically the most expensive method of divorce. It involves attorney fees, there can be discovery costs like depositions and subpoenas, and it also offers you the least amount of certainty. After all, the parties must put their entire marriage in the hands of a divorce judge, who will then make determinations regarding what constitutes the marital pot, and then how that pot should be divided. If possible, you're going to want to avoid a contested divorce, as it's definitely the most expensive and long, at least typically. But of course, in some cases, this might be your only option. The second method of divorce we're going to cover is a mediation. Now, a mediator is an independent third party who acts as a guide to you and your spouse while you try to come up with your own settlement terms together. Typically, you and your spouse meet with a professional mediator to develop the terms of your own settlement agreement. The mediator's job is to facilitate the conversation and the settlement, and if they're good, they'll provide you some insight to you and your spouse as to how a judge would rule, or most likely rule, on a specific issue if you were to go to court. Typically, mediation is far shorter and cheaper. A lot of times people don't even hire lawyers to save on that expense. Now, while I'm going to discuss the costs of each method of divorce in a moment, I want to stop and take a quick note. If you're going to go through mediation, you need to watch the video on the legal advisor's secret in this series. There are huge mistakes that people have made or people can make that you need to avoid, and there's actual advantages to be gained if you watch this video. Just so I'm clear on what I mean by mistakes, I made several very large mistakes in my divorce. One which put a $35,000 tax bill on me for a house that I actually gave to my spouse during our separation. So I'll discuss that situation and other very expensive mistakes to avoid in coming videos. It is easy to make very expensive mistakes like this, but it's also very easy to avoid them if you've got the right information. Now moving on to the third method of divorce, this is called a collaborative divorce. This is perhaps the most civil method. It's very similar to mediation, but it involves additional experts such as lawyers, therapists, and financial planners. These individuals offer their advice as you and your spouse come to agreeable settlement terms on your own. A collaborative divorce does include lawyers, however, their role is limited to assisting in reaching an agreement outside of the courtroom. And that's the main distinction. In a contested divorce, the lawyers are going at one another and you're fighting it out. In a collaborative divorce, the lawyers are helping work with you kind of all together to come to a settlement, come to your settlement agreement as one. Of the three options, a collaborative divorce is probably the one that offers you the most. You have lawyers to protect your interests, therapists to keep things civil, and financial planners to review the settlement agreement. So you have a team of people helping you to keep things civil, help you come to an agreement, and most importantly, help keep you from going to court. In my case, this would have been the preferred method of divorce, but the cost was just too prohibitive. Unfortunately, this team of people costs a lot of money, which makes it very expensive. In upcoming videos in ClearPath, I'll share ways you can get a similar set of experts, but at a much lower cost. So this can save you tens of thousands in expense and still protect you from making those really big mistakes that will follow you for years to come. Now, while there are a few other ways people can divorce, these are the three primary methods. Everyone's situation and circumstances are different, so deciding which method of divorce is best for you is really a personal decision. However, comparing the costs of the three will give you further insights that you can weigh your options. Now, before proceeding with that, I do want to touch just briefly on annulment. This question comes up frequently, so let's just run through that really quickly. Annulment is similar to a divorce in that both are methods to legally dissolve a marriage. In the case of annulment, however, the law views the marriage as if it never existed. In most cases, for annulments to be granted, they have to be brought very quickly after the marriage took place. If you're attempting to receive an annulment after a long period of time, it's much more rare and difficult. So very quickly, I'll run through those grounds, and these are just a sampling of what grounds for annulment can be. So the first is fraud and misrepresentation. These would be things like lying about the ability to have children or somebody marrying for the reason to gain citizenship. The next is concealment. That would be if someone hides that they have children from a previous relationship, or if they have like a felony conviction on their record and they didn't disclose that to you. Consent would be obviously if someone was to marry under duress, or if one party was under the legal age to consent to marriage. And probably the most common ground for annulment is a bigamous marriage. So that's annulment. It's pretty hard to get, but you can certainly ask your lawyer if that's something you want to proceed with. Okay, so let's discuss the average cost of divorce. So I'm going to give you some numbers. Don't let these overwhelm you. There are much cheaper ways to do this, which is the whole point of ClearPath, but I want to give you some averages. These are national averages. They're a little loose because every state has their own laws and everyone's got their own circumstances, but some of the averages out there are Bankrate.com says the average divorce costs $20,000, while Forbes says the average divorce costs $30,000. And that's typically for a contested divorce. So you can do it cheaper through mediation, as we'll get to in a minute. So now let's discuss and compare the cost for each of the three together. So you can see which is cheapest and what might be best for you. So a contested divorce, as we mentioned on average, is that $20,000 to $30,000 range. A collaborative divorce, you can probably do it between $10,000 and $20,000, but you're probably in the higher end of that scale just because of the experts included. It's a really great way to divorce if you can afford it because you've got so many experts there. There's going to be very little chance of making mistakes, and you've got great guidance, and it's probably very civil for most people because there's a therapist involved. So that's a really great method. Mediation is obviously the cheapest method, and it can even be done cheaper than $5,000, but you want to be very, very careful here. If you're going to go the mediation route, there are just monster mistakes that people can make trying to go it on the cheap. And so again, that's the point of ClearPath. We're going to point out what those mistakes are. We're going to give you the questions to ask. We're going to tell you the things you need to consider so that you can avoid those big mistakes that people typically make. Now, in upcoming videos of ClearPath, recent divorcees share their experiences on how it's possible to divorce in this lowest range of cost through mediation and then still receive expert legal guidance to protect your interests. So if you're going to go through a mediation, you do want to consider a couple of factors. And one would be, can you and your spouse work together to come up with your own separation agreement with a mediator? If you're so much at odds and closed-minded, then mediation is going to be very difficult, and you'll have to go with that higher expense of a contested divorce. So this might give you a little reality of you might want to open up and be a little flexible to divorce at the lower price ranges. Of course, these are things you want to do with an expert lawyer helping you out. But you also want to understand the pitfalls of a mediation and the mistakes you can make so you don't make them, which can cost you significantly. There is so much to consider when going through a divorce. The biggest mistake you can make is going into the process blindly. That's why I created ClearPath Divorce. ClearPath can really help you to reduce that pain and the time and the cost of divorce. Some of the topics in the video series to help you include how to find a great lawyer, the questions you would want to ask your lawyer in that first meeting, how to protect yourself, because so many people overlook the pitfalls that can cost significant money. We tell you the legal advisor's secret, how you can get expert financial guidance really cheaply. We talk you through mandatory waiting periods, how you can help yourself heal. We talk you through the process. We really cover a lot of the information you're going to need to know and give you a lot of direction and clarity. With ClearPath, you can learn from others' experiences to make sure you're making the really smart decisions and avoiding the really bad, costly mistakes. There are 14 sections in the ClearPath course, and I just want to review 4 real briefly and we'll wrap up. In the video, How to Protect Yourself, most people don't realize how much financial risk they're in, even if you don't have money. You can create a mountain of debt going through divorce if you don't know how to protect yourself properly, so we will cover that. The next video, How to Find a Great Lawyer or Mediator. Most people just don't know a divorce lawyer, and other than the yellow pages, how are you going to find someone? So this section covers what you need to know about divorce lawyers and the right questions to ask them. In another video, we discuss mandatory waiting periods. And this is really important to understand because every state has their own laws that can last a few weeks to a few months to literally a year. And if you don't know the rules and requirements to meet those guidelines, you might go a year in preparing for your divorce and talking to mediators and making decisions only to find out you haven't followed all the requirements, and you've got a whole additional set of time to wait before you can actually divorce. And it depends by state. It could be 3 months, 6 months, and it can be 12 months. So we'll cover that for you in that course. And then the fourth is the tax consequences. So most people have no sense of what you're getting into there when it comes to kids and tax deductions, or house and mortgages and tax deductions. One person can significantly be hurt by those consequences, and one person can significantly gain, or you can jointly split them, but you need to know that information going in. Join us in the ClearPath community and learn from others' firsthand experiences. You will learn how to reduce the pain, the time, and the cost of divorce. We'll help you understand our insights so that you can have 20/20 vision and help you make smarter decisions. If you are entering the divorce process, do not go into this blindly. Do not make the very expensive mistakes that so many of us have made. Learn from our experiences. So join the ClearPath community now, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the other side.